One, and we are recording. As I was just telling Miss O'Malley, the expensive microphone is crapping the bed again. I'm going to go on a campaign to publicly shame this company unless they send me a new one or something. I don't know. Not that I've ever asked them for. It's the Scarlet microphone. The Scarlet, not important. That's not what we're talking about. Miss O'Malley, please introduce yourself.
All right, my name is Jodi O'Malley. I am known now for being the Health and Human Services vaccine whistleblower with Project Veritas. My story came out last September with my hospital where I went and undercover recorded conversations that were happening at the nurses station in order to sound the alarm. So many people weren't seeing what was happening in the hospitals or even listening to it. So I decided to show them what was happening in real time.
I remember watching that.
Mhm.
I actually do remember watching that. How do you feel now? And for all future listeners, today is Sunday, May 15th, 2022. How do you feel now with more revelations coming out, particularly the Pfizer papers, which were supposed to not come out until 2097, I think, but obviously they're out now.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts now? Do you feel vindicated at all?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Discernment. Thank God that he gave that to me in March of 2020 with the shutdown of the world. 2 weeks to slow the spread, stay home, healthy with the sick, 6 foot, circles everywhere, mask, faulty PCR testing, all of it. I knew from the beginning, very, very early on, that this pandemic was going to be driven by three things: asymptomatic transmission, mass, you're going to kill somebody and not know it, which represented the fear, and the faulty PCR numbers. And so, how do I feel now? The Christian in me doesn't want to say I told you so, but the worldly Jodi will say that. I haven't said it to my friends. I don't say that on Facebook, but it's like, hello, do you see it now? Kind of thing. It's righteous anger, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I kind of have a hard time with that as well. Just trying to be like, hey, remember the things that I think like the head the Ministry of Truth, whoever the woman is, the head of the Disinformation Governance Board, someone dug up an old tweet from hers where she was like, "How come no one told us the J&J vaccine was going to be dangerous?" And I tweeted back at her like an interview I did with Dr. McCullough. I'm like, this got me permanently banned from YouTube. Like people were saying this, so
Mhm.
there is a huge an earthly, a worldly, a flawed, ego-driven person that's like, "I told you so." But then there's the
Mhm.
other part that's like, I look at them more as victims. I'm like, they were lied to by people who we were all, I guess, trained and grew up to believe in. People in white coats, the CDC, the FDA. It's Uncle Sam. It's these figures lied to you, and so as much as I want to say I told you so, more so I look at it as like I feel for them. I feel that they got they got abused. They got tricked.
Yeah, true, the average lay person, but I mean, what about the medical community?
Absolutely.
All it takes is a couple of, maybe an hour of researching, public health policy. Hey, have we ever done this before? Hey, novel. What's novel about a respiratory virus? It's going to be, it's going to be spread from respiratory droplets, aerosols, the respiratory route. So we're concerned about what we're breathing in and, through our nose and our mouth. That, not toilet paper, not hand sanitizer. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's been a real doozy with them.
Do you think we're actually going to see any sort of like justice or what am I looking for? Any rectifying actions that or is this going to be something where it's almost like the 2008 financial crash? It's like, oh, the bankers need to hang, and it's like 14 years later, and like nothing ever happened, and we just look at it as like they kind of wave your fist, and then you go back to your day.
Yeah. Um, no, I really don't. I the only thing that's going to get us out of this is people turning back toward God,
Yeah,
and just like how you said in 9/11, the world started to. Everybody was praying, everybody was going to churches, communities were coming together, people were uniting. It was amazing what we were doing as in a country. But then you look at, the past 20 years, and we have driven further and further away from God than we ever have before. And for me, growing up in a evangelical church where we heard end times prophecy pretty much every time we walked through the door. When the planes were grounded for the most part in March, and they said we're slowing travel and everything, and the whole world got on board with this virus that China told us. I'll say this: from the very beginning, we knew that it was the elderly that were affected. We knew that it was the people with, that were older primarily. And if you look through it, I spend so much time, Tommy, daily, weekly, looking at the numbers. And I kept looking at the numbers, and I'm like, they're not changing. They're not changing. It's the elderly. Our kids aren't affected. So it was that kind of thing, that what we had done. People are blinded. There definitely has been some like mass psychosis, if you will. I was just listening to your interview, and it's true. It's propaganda messaging that happened, and I take it this way. I traveled all throughout COVID, and you would go to the airport, and I would be literally maybe 1% of the people, maybe 0.5% of the people that didn't have their mask on while they were walking in the airport terminals. Right. I felt like I was really the only one, me and my kid, because he wouldn't wear it either. And then I go and I travel. I just come back from Alaska, and they reversed the mandate, and now you got 10% of people wearing the mask. I mean, that's a huge flip, right? From all of a sudden overnight, one judge said you don't have to wear it anymore, and people took it off.
yeah,
They took it off, which was telling you that they didn't believe it in the first place, but they
yeah.
were following orders, you
It'd be
know?
like it'd be like if you went to a war zone as like a journalist, and like the general or the commander of the base was like, "Hey, Jodi, you don't have to wear the bulletproof vest." You'd be like, "Okay, I'm still gonna wear." I know I would. I'd be like, "Thank you for the permission. I'm gonna keep my helmet on while I sleep. I'm in a war
Yes.
zone."
Right.
It's because you believe in it, right?
Right.
It's you don't have to. Yeah, yeah. That'd be like if or like if there's like a hole punctured in your airplane, and the pilot was like, "You don't have to wear that oxygen mask." It'd be like, "Cool, dude. I'm not taking it off."
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely. That's a very good analogy. Yes. So that just told me, I mean, I have more respect for that person that has 3 masks on right now on
yeah,
that airplane than I do for 90% of those people that were sitting there.
yeah, yeah. Because at least like you could they believed in it. Like, all
They
right,
believe
sure,
it.
sure.
They
And that's
believe it.
and more importantly, like I don't care if you wear a mask. Like, knock your socks off, go wild, wear one forever. I don't give a shit. Like,
Mhm.
it's just do it. But on the other hand, you know, there is something more unique about this in that just like everyone with the vaccine now, no one really cares if you have it or not. But there are a lot of people walking around with it who are thinking like, do I have some dormant problem? Do I have myocarditis? Oh, I'm at the gym. Am I just out of breath? I didn't get it. So when I'm at the gym, I'm out of breath. I'm like, all right, you're just fat. Like work
Right.
harder, eat less, work harder.
True that.
But I mean, today I was winded. I dialed up the weights a bit and I was winded. And I was just thinking, like, dude, if I had the vaccine, I'd be having a panic. My mom's a nurse. I'd be calling her every day. I'd be freaking out. I mean, there's
Yep.
got to be a lot of people who no one wants to admit it. And who knows? Maybe I'm just projecting. Maybe no one's thinking that. But
No.
do you feel like there's probably like an undertone of that or an undercurrent, whatever the right word is?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I mean, I've heard so many stories. After my story had come out, I had hundreds, if not thousands of people, probably thousands, absolutely thousands of people coming out and saying, thank you. Thank you for what you did. I knew something was wrong. Now I'm questioning it. Now my doctor doesn't see it. All of these things. But I remember my friend picking me up from the airport um, after my story had broke. About 4 days later, I had a wedding to go to in my hometown of Chicago, and she just broke down. She broke down. She's like, I didn't want to, take it. Why did I take it? And she had, we hadn't really talked much, like the 6 months probably. This is a friend I've known since I was 15, so we don't have to talk every day. But she had kind of backed off, from like listening to what I was saying, you know, and most people that live in Chicago, they're liberal for the most part, I would say. Uh, Lean more liberal, but have conservative values, but like to call themselves liberal, and they vote liberal. But anyway, and she just like broke down, and she would cry over the next week that I was there with her, randomly sitting there over her eggs in the morning at breakfast, just start crying and saying, I can't believe I didn't listen to my body. Now I don't even know what my body's trying to tell me. You know,
Jesus.
sad, very sad. And then you want to tell people it'll be okay, but I can't say, like, with certainty, like they coming out with this, they're safe and effective. I can't say don't worry about it, you're going to be okay. I can't, because we know, what we do know is that it does mess with our immunity over time. And thankfully she only, took those 2 injections. And, I was able to say with some certainty, like, listen, if you haven't had any issues yet, your body probably, took care of it. But, if you continue to feel like this, I would really question getting it again. I wouldn't tell you to get it again. I wouldn't tell anybody I love to take it. My mom, my dad, my kids, none of us have it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't have it. I'm one of the only people I know who doesn't have it. And it's just like and I don't know, it's such low hanging fruit, but I mean, like you gotta listen to your gut, like that primal part of you that's kept your ancestors alive for 10 million years.
mhm,
Just that general, like when the hair stands up on you, when something's just not right.
right.
You can't put a finger. It's not like there's a guy in your front yard at 3 in the morning holding a knife, and you're like, something's not right. Yeah, well, no shit, something's not right. But like,
Mhm,
it's more
mhm,
so when you just sometimes you'll meet people. There's just something where you're like, I don't. Maybe it's paranoia. I don't know, but
mhm,
there was something about this from the get go.
mhm,
Just and as someone that got into medical school, like as someone that's not, I'm not some, you don't need any no, you need a lot of medicine. I did get a booster during the pandemic. I got my tetanus booster because it had been like 15 years. Like I clearly believe in it. But there was something from the get go that was just, which eventually led to me getting banned from YouTube. But there was just something so uncomfortable that I still can't really put a finger on. I mean, I could flesh it out and be like, the mass coordinated campaign, the ostracizing of anyone that spoke out, the smashing of any doctor that spoke out. But even aside from that, there's still something I just can't put a finger on, that every part of my body was like, no, like over my dead body. You're not putting this in me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
you have to listen to that. And I can't imagine what it would be like to give in and then retroactively just kind of stew in regret.
You're right. Right. I like to call that I like to call that God,
Okay, yeah.
the Holy Spirit, just telling us, because, there's, if you just Google like little whisper or God's voice or something in the Bible, there'd be many scriptures. I'm a real bad Christian in remembering scriptures. If somebody starts it off, I can sometimes finish it. But I know how it makes me feel, right? And there's many times where, he comes to us and he tells us, like, I come to you as a little whisper. And it's like we have the Holy Spirit here that's on earth right now as our comforter, as our guide, while, Jesus is up in heaven with the Father before he returns. And I had another whistleblower friend that I know, and she had told me, because I was questioning, entering into a business relationship, and I said, I'm just not really sure. And she's like, Jodi, you have to look for that peace. It's that peace that can only be given through God, because our eyes are going to be fooled, our ears are going to be fooled, and the only thing that we have to stand on is the peace that God gives us, that allows us to know that we're in His will. And I'm like, all right, you're right. You're right. And then I just, prayed, and I was like, just show me a sign, lead me. And yeah, and he did throughout this entire time. So, I know you didn't ask me this, but it's like I had, told him to use me in June of 2020. I had already had so much scientific evidence of what was happening, even though it was novel. As a medical person, it's like we are taught, and as a nurse, we are taught evidence-based practice. And that means that we do things based on the best evidence we have available, right? We don't make things up, and like we did as a society with all of this. And in June, I have like one of my Facebook posts, because I'm writing a book, and they had asked me, have you journaled? And I said, no, I don't journal. But then I realized I journaled a lot on Facebook and Instagram. And one of the pop-ups came up, and in June I had asked God to, like, let me get off of social media, because I didn't want to be on it anymore. I was getting so many threats and just evil, people like coming at me because I was, speaking out against the narrative. And then somebody would, message me and say, thank you, I was going to commit suicide but I didn't, and or something like insane. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll just keep going on then. Even though I didn't want to.
No, I had that with I think the first episode I got suspended for before I got banned was with Dr. Roger Hodgkinson. And there was just such like a guttural feeling of like and my mind you, I have to frame this as someone that's like building this into like my income. This isn't like a little pet project. This is my life. This is my job. So it's not just like like, dude, what did you care? It was a YouTube channel. Like, no, this is what I didn't do medical school. Like like so all my eggs are in this basket. Like that's how
Mhm.
much this means to me. But that also goes to show just how powerful the feeling in me that was like, you can't stop you can't stop talking about this. And it doesn't matter what it is. And I've said this from the get-go. I don't care if it was COVID or I mean, whatever. It could be don't talk about the full moon. Anything. Don't talk about dogs barking. It doesn't matter what it is.
Mhm.
There was just something that was so strong inside of me that was like, I can't shut. And it might just be kind of like the arrogant, hard-headed Irish guy in me that was like, "Fuck you! Don't tell me what I can talk about." Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep interviewing these people. Um,
Mhm.
but there was something that was like, I can't shut up about. There was just something so creepy about these. And again, it's one thing if it's me, but when I'm interviewing Dr. McCullough, Dr. Malone, Dr. Merrick, Dr. Urso, Dr. Fareed, Dr. on and on
Mhm.
and on, like the most respected individuals in their field, and I'm just being systematically like silenced, shadow banned, removed. Man, it doesn't take two brain cells to go, something's going on.
Mhm.
And even if, and that's another thing about kind of critical thinking is like you don't have to know what it is that's going on. You don't have to. It's like Scooby Doo or something. Like you can find a clue, right?
Yeah.
You don't necessarily know what it is, but you know something's going on, and
Mhm.
you just can't shut up. And that was kind of my experience with, and it still is to a degree. Is
Mhm.
no, like I can't shut up.
Yeah.
Again, not that you asked about that, but
No, but you bring up a good point, because when I had to have my ethics evaluation done, because the State Board of Nursing, Arizona Board of Nursing required me to undergo an ethics evaluation, I had found out that in order to be a whistleblower, you have to have just really, it's the lowest body of evidence that is needed. Okay,
huh.
the lowest body of evidence. And I thought, wow, oh, that's intense. And then when he explained it to me, he said, you know how like when you're taking care of a patient and you might suspect child abuse and you have to report it. And I said, yes. And he goes, you don't need to know for sure that
Yeah,
there is. You just need to have a feeling, something is telling you, not just a feeling, but you have to have a couple of different things that are
yeah,
pointing, could this be child abuse? And if you think, could this be child abuse, then you have a mandate duty, you're mandated to report that. And it's so just the same as a whistleblower. It's like you don't need to know all of it. You just need to have a feeling, in a sense, that something isn't lining up here. So, I'll just throw that out there so your listeners can hear that, because there's a lot more of us that need to come out. There's a lot more of us, that come to me and tell me all of their, problems and what they're seeing, but so very few are willing to be public about it.
can you kind of walk me through like what led to you being a whistleblower? Like what were the steps that finally culminated in you doing it?
Well, okay, so I told you about in the beginning, I went through all the science on shutting down the society and everything that would entail, the drug abuses, the homicides, the domestic violence, the sexual assaults on children, all of that stuff. And I knew I'd been watching it happen, and it was very hard to see. So I'm a critically care trained. I'm a ICU nurse. I'm an ER nurse, and I'm also a hospital supervisor. So on any given day when I report to work, I could be in any of those roles. And so I had seen everything, transpire as far as like COVID, BS COVID admissions, all of that stuff. And in October, I had known enough about early treatment that I had gotten it in my cabinet, and I had told my friends and family to get it in their cabinet of October of 2020, because it was so safe,
Yeah.
and then we had the vaccine rollout. So I work for the Native Americans exclusively, and they are the highest affected population, I want to say, in the world, at least in the United States.
For COVID?
Yes,
Really?
of deaths. Yep, the
What
highest by 5-6 times higher.
why is that?
Why is
Is it
that?
just genetic
One,
makeup?
genetics. but also, you also have other people, like Hispanics and African Americans that are prone to kidney issues and diabetes and stuff. But for the Native Americans, they're a special group in the sense that many of them, live in multi-generational households, and they live on the reservations with no running water or anything. And you go and you put the fear of God in these people, and you tell them to stay home and not go outside and not open a window, and to eat horrible food, because typically their diets consist of poor choices. And anyway, and then you tell them all to stay in the house, and sickness just went through it like wildfire. And we didn't treat them appropriately. And if they already have, a propensity to diabetes and kidney issues, the drug remdesivir that we were giving was really knocking that out, and I believe that, that really killed a lot of people as well. And then you have the vaccine, or the injection, that I think has done a lot of them in as well. Many issues with autoimmune diseases, cancers reoccurring, that type of thing. But so that happened in December and January. We got our second wave of admissions, and at this time we also had the vaccine rollout. So we were seeing a ton of people coming in COVID positive, but just very shortly after the vaccine, right? A few days or so. And the talk at the nurses station and stuff was, oh, well, they should have gotten it earlier. Maybe they should have gotten it in December when they, it first came out. And it's like, man, there's something up here, and since then, VAERS and IHS has released a statement showing that COVID-19 disease after vaccination is an adverse event of special interest, that must be reported, and definitely was not reported. So go through that. I still was researching the ivermectin and the hydroxychloroquine, and anybody that I knew personally that came to me, I would tell them, here's a doctor that's prescribing. And so I became texting friends with the physician that was prescribing, and all of the great outcomes we were having with it, that by July, that was when our third wave came up. July, August, we were getting a whole nother set of admissions with people, and they were super sick this time. They were sicker than I'd ever seen them be before. And nobody was talking about early treatment. And at this time, I was absolutely done watching people die. At that point in August, everybody that we had intubated for that 3 months had passed away. So, there was no good outcomes, and we were still telling people to go home. There's nothing we could do for you. Come back if you can't breathe, and then we're going to give you, the one and only drug, that was approved by NIH essentially. And at that time, I didn't know anything about remdesivir other than I knew that it wasn't working. Everybody could agree with that. But what really turned the tides, and I guess my prayers were answered, because I was very close to leaving and going and picketing at the reservations. I even told my boss that I'm going to quit, and I'm going to go tell these natives that there's early treatment and I'm done. And she's like, Jodi, just stay. I know it's slow moving with the government, but you'll do so much good here. Just work with us. And an ER doctor who actually told me about ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine 2 years prior, had said to me, it's chess, not checkers. So just stick with it. And I was like, fine. But then when I come to work one day and I find out that my coworker, who did not want to take the vaccine, who was offered it in December of 2020, and now it's August, 2 weeks later after her first injection, she's in the hospital. as one of our admits and is COVID positive. And I said, oh, are you kidding me? You know, and I said, how much oxygen is she on? And they're like, she's not requiring any. And I'm like, then why is she here? Why are we admitting her? Her blood pressure, everything good? Yeah. And they said, well, they want to give her remdesivir. And I said, but she doesn't even qualify for remdesivir because her oxygen is normal. And they're like, well, they want to try it. And I was like, okay. And I had went to see her. Make a long story short, she had told me she wanted to try those meds that I had been talking about for almost a year. And I told her nurse that she wanted to try ivermectin, and her nurse asked her nurse if she had found, if she knew anything about it. And she said, I maybe a little bit. And I said, well, research it. Here's a website, do some research. I gave her FLCCC, and she said, yeah, let's try it. And I said, yeah, awesome. Call the hospitalist. And she called the hospitalist, called me back and said the hospitalist said that she won't prescribe it because it's controversial. And I was like, yeah, no, that's not going to fly. So I called the hospitalist and the nurse into my office, and I told the doc, I said, with all due respect, doc, being controversial isn't a reason not to practice medicine. Do you know anything about this drug? And she said, yes. And I said, well, will you look at it and look up her HMP and see if she can take it? And then I found out that she ordered it. And I was like, yes, she ordered it. Then I get a call that that the pharmacist said that she's not going to fill it because she's not following because she has to follow orders. And that when the pharmacist refused to dispense it, I called her to my office, and that's when I did my first recording. And you know, and even still now, like the pharmacist has an order of protection on me, telling me that you know, that I'm a danger to her because other people reach out to her, and all of this stuff. And she's trying to get me right now, like, you know, she's got spies all over the place, and you know, she's trying to get me now to not be able to use the name pharmacist. Yeah. So anyway, that's when I was done. I was like, I need to hear what this lady is going to tell me. And when she told me she was just following orders and she knows nothing about the drug, that she is refusing, that she is not going to lose her job. She loves this patient, but she's not losing her job over it. And I said, well, can you at least research it? You know, and she's like, I don't have the time.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
did she say it in a German accent too? I was just following orders.
And it's nuts.
It's
You know, honestly, I think she may be German.
oh god, oh god.
But
She's like, I follow orders. Father follow orders. My grandfather. You're like, oh, all right, back down.
I know, I was just thinking of her last name, and I'm like, that's the first time I ever connected the two.
Her last name's like Reinhardt or Eichmann. You're like, oh
Right.
God Almighty. She's like, I was just following orders, Frauen. You're like, good
I mean,
God Almighty.
and it's so sad because, you know, here, look at this, Tommy. It's like, it's been 8 months since my story broke, right? And I'm in court with her a month ago.
Yeah.
And she's still doing everything she can to get me to be quiet instead of her doing some research on it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's putting makeup on after your spouse has beat you. You're like, I just don't want there to be problems. And it's like,
right.
Yeah, neither do we. There are problems. Like, we can go fix the problems at home. No. I just don't want there to be problems. It's like, dude, but I mean, little things like that. And it's so cliche, but like, that's where it makes sense when it's like, how did that happen? Oh, it's, evil's allowed to persist when good men do nothing or good women do nothing.
Yep.
You really see it there, and it's not
Hmm.
exaggerating or being dramatic, because there are people that died because they didn't get early treatment. There are tons
Right.
of people that died. Dr.
Right.
Freed says 99% of COVID deaths were because they didn't get early treatment.
Right.
And we
Right.
just passed the million death mark. Like, that's, you
Yeah.
see what happens. Like, no, it doesn't all happen with one person, but you see what happens when you just follow orders. I don't want to get in trouble. I just want my job. Yeah, well,
That's right.
when a
And
million people,
everybody's doing that.
yeah,
Everybody's doing that. They're still doing it, you know?
yeah,
At my hospital that I work at, so it's government ran, and we are pretty much ran by the United States Public Health Commission Corps. So these are military people that, have made a career out of
out of,
taking orders.
yeah,
So they're used to it.
yeah, yeah. And it's like that quote again, another cheesy quote, but it's no single raindrop thinks it's responsible for the flood. And
Right.
it's like, well, all right. So we started recording. What then it goes with Project Veritas. What repercussions did you receive? Just out of my own curiosity. What
Well,
is it?
I'm still employed
Okay.
by Phoenix Indian Medical Center. Eight
All right.
months later, I get a paycheck every 2 weeks. Um, Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
Very interesting. So once my story broke, I got a call saying I was on administrative leave. And then 2 weeks after that, they called me every 30 days telling me that I am on investigative leave. My investigative leave ended 2 months ago, and they put me on notice leave. So now I asked them what notice leave meant, and they said that some adverse event is going to transpire. Either I'm going to get suspended, I'm going to be on probation, or I'm going to be terminated. And I said, okay. But then about a month ago, at the same time, I had just had my annual performance review, and I was 1/10% of away from, not 1/10%. I received a score of 4.4, where 4.5 would have been exceptional. So I was above average, having blown the whistle.
So it kind of
So,
seems like,
I mean, make it make sense, Tommy. Make it make sense.
don't put that on me. It's I can't make 1 + 1 = 3, but it sounds like what it is they're towing the line. They're having their cake and they're eating it too. They're technically not firing you because that would open up a whole bag of shit for them,
Mhm.
but they're kind of keeping you at arm's length.
Yeah, like I didn't do anything wrong, right? I got
Yeah.
exonerated by the board of nursing. I
It,
upheld my ethics.
yeah.
So if I upheld my ethics,
Well, then that can only mean that they did not. So they're looking in a mirror. It's like when you see someone the exact same age as you who's just
mhm,
doing something like great, and like part of you hates it, but it's more so because deep down you know that that's what you're capable of. You're like, I could, deep down I know if I like hit the gym more, I could look like that. Or deep down I know I could have better manners, or I could dress better, or I could whatever, just be a more upstanding member of society, or be a better son or boyfriend or whatever.
yeah,
And like part of you's like, screw that guy. And it's like, it's because there's an anger in you that, like, if I see someone my age in the NBA, but they're 7'2", and I'm like, I'm 5'10", I'm like, yeah, there's really, I mean, no. But if I
right,
saw another 5'10" white Irish guy in the NBA, I might be like, fuck that guy. He cheated,
right.
but it's because deep down I'm like, there's a guy that just took all odds and went against it. So I feel like that's maybe, if I can make sense of it, maybe there's something like that. They're looking at you and you did the right thing. You didn't follow orders. You upheld your oath. You did the thing that you don't regret, and now, and it always feels like time will never pass. Despite living 31 years, it always seems like the next year is just like infinitely far away. And then a year passes and you go, oh, another year went by, and then you're convinced that the next year is never going to pass. But it's like a year always goes by. There's something about that where, I mean, even like doing episodes that I knew were going to get me banned, I was like, I feel like I'm never going to be like exonerated. And then just like that, I mean, it's over a year later. I'm like, oh, I was in the
Right.
right. And I can like stand on that. I can go, I did the right thing. And you can kind of pat yourself on the back. When this situation came, like I rose to the occasion. I would imagine that they're maybe seeing that or they're projecting that because they're like, oh, she did the right thing. And like, we have to look that in the eyes. That's
It
my
could,
best shot at
yeah.
making sense of it. That's my best shot. You said make sense of it. That's my best.
And it could be because, my story that came out, it was a young guy in his 30s that had myocarditis, pericarditis, congestive heart failure, 2 weeks post vaccination. I also, showed a 15-year-old kid that had bilateral blood clots on both sides of his lungs. Sorry, I'm just getting over a little cold, but
No, you're fine. My allergies are killing me. It's fine.
and so I think it did. Yeah, I mean, now Pfizer has a myocarditis as a warning. J&J, didn't they get like
They just got
pulled?
pulled from the market in
Yeah,
the US.
right. Right.
Yeah, yeah. It's you don't want to say I told you so because there's no like benefit in that. Like there was a guy, and this is a really exaggerated example. So by no means am I putting myself or yourself in that situation. But to use an exaggerated example, there was a guy that noticed some other passengers on a plane, and some of it was profiling because they're Islamic guys. But he noticed like I think what they're talking about and taking note, and it looked like they're like taking note on like when the stewardesses go back and forth, and when they're at cruising altitude, how far away the cockpit was, and he reported it to the FBI, and it never went anywhere. And it was a couple months before 9/11, and it turns out he was on a flight with some of the hijackers who were going on dry runs. That guy probably gets no value out of saying I told you so because 3,000 people burned alive.
Right.
So you don't get any value out of like every loved one I have has the vaccine. No part of me wants to be like, ha, your heart's fucked. Like I don't, excuse
Right.
my French, but like I don't, what? I don't want that.
Right.
I don't want that at all. But at the other point, you're also like, hey, like we need to look at this. Like I was right, had nothing to do with me. Like let's remove my ego.
Mhm.
But now we need to look into this. We can't just go, all right, yeah, you're right. Like, no, no, no. What happened? What propagated? And how do we make sure that this doesn't happen again? That's the big thing is you have to go, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? Because yeah, COVID's kind of over, right? It's not the main thing anymore. But we all just saw how quickly the whole world could be turned upside down. And just like that pharmacist following orders, we all saw how quickly the vast majority of the population was absolutely a-okay with ratting on their neighbors and with you providing again that German heritage. You got to provide your papers. Like, not even like, how did this happen? Well, it happened slowly over years. No, in like, it in like 2 years, less than 2 years, in a year, we went from the biggest story being like Notre Dame was on fire and Kobe Bryant's helicopter crashed to you will show your papers or you cannot belong to society. Like no time at all. This wasn't a 30-year thing where they boiled the frog. No, no, no. Even like the German concentration camps started in 1933. The death camps, I want to say, started in like 1939 or 1940. Even that was 7 years. This was a year and change that it went from nothing bad to like, value your papers. Are they up to date? Provide your papers. Get the
Mhm.
plague rats out of here.
Mhm.
It dialed up so quickly that as much as I don't want to say like I told you so, we kind of have to examine this because at any given moment we are a year away, as we just saw with our own eyes and ears. This isn't anecdotes from your grandparents, as we just saw. At any given moment, we are 12 months away from half the society demanding you provide papers.
Mhm.
So that's kind of where I am. Like the reason I keep doing these podcasts, like people are like, dude, it's like the mandates are over, like the Pfizer papers are out. Why are you still interviewing? I'm like, because this can't happen again. Like originally I did them because I wanted to get the story out.
Mhm.
Now I'm doing them because this can't happen again. This
Right.
cannot happen again. And we just saw how quickly it happened. And that's why I'm still kind of hammering it home. That's why I want to see justice done. Because at any given moment, we're another year away from people saying provide your papers. Like
Mhm.
that's unsettling. Like that's very unsettling. I don't know where I'm
Yeah.
going with this. Sorry, I'm getting all worked
Are
up.
you familiar with the World Health Assembly convening in May? They're like a little part of the World Health Organization.
Is that where they're like remove or like all the nations are signing on that if there's another pandemic, they'll relinquish their sovereignty?
Yep.
It's like Bill Gates writing that book, The Next Pandemic. Like, dude, I thought that's like OJ writing the book If I Did It. Like, what do you
Right.
mean the next one? I thought this was a once in a century thing.
Right.
And even now, but we're seeing even Bill Gates came out, wasn't it last week? There's an interview where he goes, well, we now know that it really only affects the elderly. We could treat it like a flu.
Mhm.
The thing that if you said you'd get banned, and I know because I was, they're just coming out and saying like, well, we now know, like a Rochelle Walensky is like, well, a lot of people were hoping that the vaccines were perfect. And the reality is science isn't black and white. It's a lot of gray area. And it's like, you mother, and like, what they're doing. They're gaslighting you because they want us to
Yep.
overreact. They want white Irish guys like me to get red in the
Yep.
face. So I try not to give it to them. But yeah, like that's why I'm still kind of hammering it home is because, yeah, as he said, they're signing that thing where it's like, in the off chance of another pandemic, which we just war gamed very, very well, would you guys all sign over your national sovereignty? Just,
Mhm.
just as a random shot in the dark,
Yeah.
if it ever happened again, just if it ever happened, it's like, what are you
Right.
demons cooking up?
Well, and it's like the Biden administration proposed these changes. So what they're trying to do is just put it on the World Health Organization and saying that, in my opinion, because he knows that he doesn't have the power to really do it to us, right? Because
Yeah.
we'll just rise up. Let's put all the onus on the World Health Organization and say that, oh, it's for global health, right? And it's like, yeah.
Well, that's a play that's out of the playbook from the dawn of time. Whenever you'd conquer lands, you'd never make men from that town become soldiers for the emperor because they knew everyone in the town. You'd always take men, let's just for example, if you conquered Atlanta, you don't take the men from Atlanta and make them Gestapo members because they know everybody in Atlanta. Like I lived in Atlanta. What you
Mhm.
do is you conquer Atlanta and you conquer Boston and you take all the men from Boston. Hey, go kick down the doors in Atlanta. You don't give a shit. What do you know? And all the hate goes, oh, those Boston guys. And then you take all the guys from Atlanta, throw them up to Boston. Hey, hate them, all these rednecks.
Yeah.
They were doing that in the Roman Empire. Like, this isn't a new thing. So, no, it's not us. It's the World
Yeah.
Health Organization.
Right.
I
Right.
think,
And it's the same way as they get away with saying, oh, that this vaccine doesn't qualify under the Nuremberg Code because it's not experimental,
like,
because
the,
they went to a
the,
clinical trial, and it's
the,
like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
dude,
Maybe you need
I remember that article where it was like, no, fact checkers say this technically isn't. I'm like, the fact that you have to put out an article that says, hey, we checked, technically, we're not violating the laws that came in place after the Nazis burned 12 million people. Like, that's
uh-huh.
that's that's like that's like saying like, yeah, no, I went on a date with this girl, and no, I looked up the local laws. It technically wasn't rape, and it's like, dude, what the fuck did you just say? Like, it's like if you get pulled over and you're like, officer, technically I know I'm under the legal limit. And they're like, I was pulling you over for a tail light. And you're like, oh, like,
Right.
sorry. Yeah. But that's, yeah. We checked. We didn't violate the Nuremberg Code. And it's like,
Uh-huh.
no one asked, but
Well, and here's something interesting that I found out. So, when they did the Roe v. Wade, and I guess they tried to get it codified. I want to say codified, but I
Codify.
think
Yeah, I
it's
think it's.
codified.
I
Whatever.
don't know what it is. Yeah,
CODIFIED
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know
into
what it is
law,
either.
and they didn't, they weren't successful. Then I heard Dr. Richard Urso speak and say, we need to have the Nuremberg Code codified into law. And then I was like, wait a second, it's not? Like, this is just something, humanitarian ethics, on experimentation that we should just do because we're good humans. This isn't law. And it's like, no, it's not. It's just something that we should be doing. But it's
Yeah.
not codified into national or international law.
Well, on that kind of, to branch from that, it's like it's kind of like gun laws. When people are like, why do you need a gun? And it's like, so I don't get robbed. And they're like, well, there are gun laws, so no one has guns. And it's like, that's not how it works. Hey, every mass shooting, guess what? There are laws in that state that say you can't go shoot people, and it still happens. Like, the idea that like nukes should be illegal. Well, how are you going to enforce that? Hey, technically, it was illegal for Russia to invade Ukraine. But how do you force that? I mean, at a certain point, there are no more cops to call. You're at the highest level. So, like, yeah, like the Nazis killing 6 million Jews, like that was illegal. What good did that do? Hey, this is illegal, Hitler. Doesn't give a shit. So,
Right.
yeah, I kind of have my own qualms with that, where it's like, oh, this wasn't even law, and it's like, well, what does law even really mean if they just shut down the world, did a massive censorship campaign, and gaslit and coerced everyone into taking an experimental jab, and then drop the mandates and come out and go, well, technically you didn't have to get it. Like, what
Right.
does any of it even really mean?
Yeah.
Not that you have the answer, not that I have the
Right.
answer.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I like the way your mind thinks.
My mind is chaotic and manic, and I have to try to contain it in some reasonable sense. But I think the one, we'll try to wrap up on like a positive note. For me, the silver lining in all of this is like, we just saw like what a lot of people really are. Like, not to sound like a total like incel and quote the Joker from Batman, but I mean that line from like the Heath Ledger one where he's like, we have all of our laws, but when the chips are down, people will eat each other. Like, we just saw how quickly in a year it went from like, yeah, no, dude, society's awesome, to like, where are your papers, you dirty plague rat? And it's like,
Mhm.
excuse me, to the government, we gotta go door to door, and it's like, what are you talking about? To me, the upside is we just saw that, and you got to see a lot of people for what they really are. And
Yeah.
even though it's over now, like, you now know you can't, "Oh, I was just kidding. I was just kidding about the mandates." And it's like, no, you fired me. Like, you fired me because I wouldn't take this thing that my doctor said I shouldn't take. I think that there's an upside with that. And I also think that, I don't know, I think that kind of, and I hate the term, people are waking up. People have been saying that people are waking up for the dawn, since the dawn of time. No, the vast majority of them are not. But if anything, just labeling everything disinformation, I think that got a lot of people aware of the idea that like, hey, if it's labeled disinformation, it's probably true. And we're also seeing that just because the government says it doesn't mean that it's right. And don't appeal to authority. Well, they said it. Well, who the hell are they? How much money are they getting from Pfizer? Is that a coincidence?
Mhm.
So, as the whistleblower, what are some silver linings to this? It's not. Is it all just doom and gloom?
Listen, I still want to see nurses speak up.
Yeah.
Um, we need to empower nurses to stand up and uphold their ethics and their oath that they took. They are the ones who are running this hospital. They may get the orders from the doctor, but it's up to them if they're going to carry it out. And if they are seeing that there's, I can't tell you how many people, how many nurses come to me and say, I know something's not right, or I am getting bullied at the nurses station. The way they are discriminating against patients. And this is happening, and it's continuing to happen. And I think we just need to empower nurses to come forward. Courage is contagious. And when I say come forward, I mean speak your truth.
Yeah.
I mean talk. Don't let people silence you because you may think that that's not how they think, or they don't want to hear what you have to say. The days of being silent and putting your head down are over. They are over. Like, if you are one of those people that have that little inkling in their spirit that something isn't right, and you've had that little inkling for a long time, but you've kept your head down because you need to collect a paycheck, right? Because you need to support your family and your kids. What kind of world are you leaving to them? People say this to me. I don't even know how they can even open their mouth and say it to me. Like, oh, I want to do it, but I can't do it because, I have student loans. Yeah, well, I got tens of thousands of them. Oh, I couldn't do it because I'm a single parent. I raised my kid by myself. Yeah, me too. Oh, well, I have a pension. That's a good job. Yep, so did I. I was making 6 figures base salary without any overtime. Trust me, leaving my cake government job is not something I ever wanted to do. I thought I would be there forever. I was actually planning on going back and getting my MP in psych because I knew how much people were going to need that, given what we've done to society. And they were going to pay for that $60,000. I didn't have to pay for it. So when I say, when you want to hear a silver lining, the silver lining is that people are waking up and they are saying Jesus's name more and more and more. And they don't, the stigma associated with it is kind of gone. That is the positive. That is the biggest positive, is that people are recognizing that they need to take care of their spiritual health.
Yeah.
And because their mental health, every time you go to work and you get that paycheck in your bank every 2 weeks, like I looked at myself and I was like, okay, what do I have to do in order to blow the whistle? Well, I'm not buying that new car.
Yeah.
Well, I'm staying in my apartment. I'm not going to buy that house.
Yeah.
Those types of things. Like, what can you dial back on in order to be able to have your integrity intact and sleep well at night and be able to tell your kids that you did do something?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Wanna
sorry.
no. It's wonderful. One of my military combat veteran friends had a great line, and it used to be, I can't speak up, I have a wife and kids, and now it's, I have to speak up, I have a wife and kids.
Right.
Like, what do you, and yeah, it does, that eats away at your soul. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I remember after my first suspension, I would just, like, not talk about COVID, and there was just a little part in me that was like, "Oh, I'm not allowed to say the bad words. Oh, I'm not," and it was just there's like a little, instead of like the little angels or demons on your shoulder, there's just a little thing on my shoulder that's just like, "You pussy bitch. Like, you can't
Right.
even, you can't say the bad word. Like, you're a grown ass man, and, oh, I'm too scared to talk about COVID." Like, I'd gone on podcasts where, like, beforehand, they're like, "And, no banned topics." And I was like, grab your balls. Like, are they there or not? Like, we
Right.
can't talk about this, but aside from that, we're going to talk about raging against the machine. Like, except for the part where we can't talk about the COVID thing. And it's like,
Right.
and it's, yeah, it would be a lot easier. It is very difficult trying to build a podcast and you're sending emails to potential guests. And then you have to include the part where it's like telling them you're a felon. You're like, oh, and why can't you find, and you have to include it in the email because 100% eventually asks, how come I can't find you on YouTube? Well, that's the thing, I was kind of permanently banned. Why were you permanently banned from YouTube? What did you possibly do? You know, what were you doing, a Nazi salute? Were you talking about like rape? No, I talked about COVID.
Right.
Like, there is a thing. Now, granted, it wasn't a six-figure job like yours, but there is part of you that's like, yeah, man, like this is my job. This is my well-being. This is what pays for my apartment.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's not easy doing what you know you should do. And everybody's making fun of you. Oh, you're an anti-vaxxer. But the upside is man, there's no greater feeling
Yeah,
than when you know you did the right thing.
that's right.
Even it's like where you have to report if you think it's child abuse, even if it turns out that it wasn't, and people
Hmm.
make fun of you. You're like, dude, that would at least you're like, hey,
Yeah,
I can go to bed no problem. I sleep like
yeah.
a baby. And turns out like we have been vindicated, but let's say we aren't.
Hmm.
There'd be part of me that'd be like, well, it turns out the vaccine wasn't bad at all.
Hmm.
I would still be proud of being like, yeah, but you know what? I didn't bend over. Like I spoke my mind,
Right.
and I have the freedom to learn. I have the freedom to be an idiot and be wrong.
Yep.
There is no there is sacrifice, but man, it is like having it's just weights pulled off your shoulder. You're just like you're like, yep, I did the right thing. Everything else is kind of easy after that. You're like I can look myself in the mirror. I'm like, you might be weird and a loser, but you did the right thing. Fist bump, like
That's like
like
good job, Tommy boy.
yeah. Like you might be clinically insane, but like you know what, you did the right thing, and like
Yeah.
that's something that you can hang your hat on. You don't need validation from anyone. It's something, yeah, you can pray. You can go, yeah. There's no. It's like one less thing you feel like you need to confess. You're like, I'm an egotistical person. I'm a narcissist. I'm imperfect. But
Hmm.
I did do the right thing. Like I might have failed the test, but I absolutely wrote my name with perfect cursive and I got the date right. Like you can at least put that aside and you're like, I did one part right.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I tell people, I don't care what your truth is. If your truth is that you think the injection is a saving grace and it's,
If
the best thing since sliced bread, great. Say it.
yeah,
Tell people that.
yeah,
Have a conversation. Allow conversations to take place. When you're sitting there and somebody's putting down and discriminating against somebody, speak up and tell them that that's not right and
yeah,
that you're not, that they shouldn't do that. And when I tell people, like I'm a fighter by nature. I mean, I got kicked out of two public schools and had to go to Catholic school by seventh grade, right? I mean, that's who I am inside of me. I don't keep my mouth shut when I see things happening that are wrong. It's who I am, and I guess I've just honed that, for my whole life. That when yes, I did get, at the pinnacle of my career, and I'm a government employee making bank and having all these benefits. I still knew the person that was a teenage mom at 16 with two kids, that could go clean houses for money
yeah,
and wash windows for money. So that's the thing. Like, I think Americans, they're just so used to being comfortable, and anything that, messes with that or threatens that, they don't want to have any part in it.
yeah,
But what they don't know, because they've been having their head down, doing as they're told for the last 2 years, they haven't looked up and seen what the future
yeah,
is in store for them.
yeah.
And they're just trying to strip away our liberties. And I think as far as connecting with people, I think people have come back together. Families that were kind of destroyed, now I do see families like in friendships being mended and stuff. But it's not going to continue if we don't talk, and we have to speak in love and kindness, and just speak our truth.
Well, I was gonna say your name's Jodi O'Malley. My
Yeah.
name's Thomas Patrick Carrigan. I mean, we do share that common just just hard-headed Irishness. So
Yes.
it's
There is that.
you're preaching to the choir. Like everyone else is watching this, like, what the hell is wrong with these two people? Screaming about God in America, and everyone's like, just shut up and get along to go along. And we're like, fight to the death. And it's like,
Right? Like,
yeah,
say
yeah.
something.
All the other Irish people are watching it, and they're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you know what? Well, I'm not ashamed of that. But
Me neither.
Miss O'Malley, I got to wrap this one up because I got another guest in the waiting room. So,
Yep.
I would love to have you on again sometime. That was wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah,
That was great.
that was fucking awesome. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Tommy.
All right. I'll send it to you when it's up. As I said, yeah, I would love to do another one. And again, thank you so much. So
Yeah, I'll send you a website if you could direct people to it.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're
Text it to me. I'll
working.
put it in the description.
Okay, awesome.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
God
All
bless
right.
America. Thank you so
God
much for
bless.
everything.